People, Deluded, I'm back again. I hope you're all doing well and safe on this Friday afternoon. Well, it's afternoon where I am in England. Wherever it is, wherever you are, I hope you and yours are doing just fine. Now, from an Arsenal perspective, I know those of you have hope Aubameyang stays, signs a new deal. A lot of us, myself included, are in wait and see mood. A lot of us, again, I class myself as that, just accepted he's gone. Purely the facts are he's a quality player, top class quality player, deserves to be playing Champions League, deserves to be in a strong team. Doesn't, obviously he has to take some hand because obviously he's been playing games for Arsenal and, we've all felt together. But where you can't really look at a player and say at Arsenal, are they top class? Are they really consistent? Are they this, that and the third? It's Aubameyang. In the day and age, if you was to look at all our signings during the Emirates era, there's not too many that have been real quality. Ozil will polarise opinion. He's been sick. Santi's been a baller as well. But for me, Alexis and Aubameyang, two real standout candidates. And since Aubameyang's come here, he scored goals. He showed it to come in January and settle the way he did when he came. Obviously, it was good. His first full season, he claimed the top boot. I think he tied with people. And prior to this season and whatever, he's been up there. He scores goals. He does, people can say what they want about the man. He scores goals and he deserves to be at a stronger team than us. Arsenal have shot ourselves in the foot because I don't know why there wasn't an option of another year when we initially signed him. Similar to you look at Pogba's deal at United. It is what it is. And considering his age, considering the way he plays, considering where we are as a club, all the fingers point to going out of this team. Now, I'm going to do this in another vid, but maybe selling Aubameyang, and I hope it's not, but maybe selling Aubameyang is key to our transfer sort of things, what we're going to do, people. Like I said, I'll expand on that in another video that will come out together with this one. So, yeah, shameless plug. But the latest reports have linked Aubameyang with a whole host of things, people. And I wouldn't say the ending is more positive, but I'll leave that for the end. But let's just get straight into it, man. First and foremost, you've got Sammy Mokbel of the Daily Mail. He has said Arsenal have shelved Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang contract talks as doubts over his future grow, with Inter Milan and Barcelona both keen to land the former Borussia Dortmund man. The Mail claim Arsenal have shelved. Yeah, I've just, it's been the same thing, so I won't read that again, people. Allegedly, he's gone on to more or less say that Arsenal are ready to listen to offers because, our hands are tied. I actually think there's big enough reason for him to just let the man run down his deal. I do think first and foremost you've got to sell players that don't want to be here. You've got to sell players where you can get some money. And Aubameyang, we're going to get short change for Aubameyang. We'll probably just about break even, get our 50 odd million for him and keep it moving. Purely because we have no aces. We've got no cards in our pack really in keeping Aubameyang. The only key we have is to say, you know what, we're not selling you. He stays at the club. Obviously, he can agree moves in January, but you're hoping by then other clubs would have said, all right, cool, you do your thing with Aubameyang. We're gonna, sign other players, and they might look at him and say, you know what, a year from now, 6 months from now, it might not be the same value. Now, I can almost bet my life Aubameyang wouldn't dig his heels in like Alexis, would still score goals, but that's one thing. And similar to Ramsey, which it didn't work, if keeping Aubameyang was to allow us, if we fix up, and a big if you fix up other areas, get Arteta every man he, not necessarily in terms of name, but if he wants a centre-half or two centre midfielders and a winger, go out and get him that. Go and make sure the squad is patterned so that Arteta and we can have no excuses with that. And then you fix up the other areas. You've got 20 league goal minimum striker in Aubameyang. We're not going to be able to replace that, right? At least we were not going to be able to get a like-for-like replacement. It's going to be someone with development or a scouting thing. You do that. If he helps you get top four, then he might stay because of Champions League. If not, move on. We get more money from the Champions League. You've had an extra year to look for a striker. You do something of that. Obviously, people, again, with no aces in our pack because of his contract, it's that simple. The prospect of Champions League, if I'm Aubameyang, maybe he might even price him out of moves elsewhere, but finances is a big part of this deal because it's his last real big contract if he was going to get any. Obviously, because of Arsenal's situation with the coronavirus, all contracts and transfers are probably off the table. We've got a very delicate financial situation, which is even highlighted more by some players, not just the key players that certain people will scapegoat, a lot of players that are not really worth, and I'm not saying necessarily the money, it don't match up. There's a big mismanagement of wages, so maybe potentially we can't give Aubameyang anything really. And like I said, maybe we're resigned to selling him. He's been linked with Chelsea. Apparently they're looking at Verne and a couple of others, but if I was a top 6 rival, again, Aubameyang will give you value. It would almost be like when Robin van Persie went United, and you know a season or two is going to help you do the mad thing. Aubameyang's not going to be there for 10 years, but if he can help you, obviously he can play on the left-hand side. If I was a top 6 rival, I would, keep one ear and eye open as to what's going on at Arsenal. And things like that. Apparently, one reporter said, and I think this is via Le 10 Sport people, Aubameyang is already talking to pals at Inter Milan as he's considering a return to Serie A. The salary is the biggest obstacle, but it can be solved. The chances of Aubameyang playing for Arsenal next season are very slim, and I think this was by Le 10 Sport, and yeah, it said he's been linked with Inter Milan. It did also say the financial package that Arsenal and Aubameyang both want for him, there's a bit of mismanagement. So if we're priced out of it, and really and truly, I think Aubameyang's worth the wages, but at the same time, decisions have to be made, and we might have to be cruel to be kind, and make no mistake, we're not costing Aubameyang anything. We'd be cutting off our own nose to spite our face if we potentially did that, people. But the report I saw via the Le 10 Sport, apparently the extension, and this is copied and pasted via Google Translate, people, so it's literally said the extension file has been on standby for a while. I think that means the offer has been on the table and nothing's done on that. We've just been sitting on it. Apparently talks, and I will say this, apparently Arsenal are planning talks at the end of the season with Aubameyang, which is too little too late. I'm not going to get into it, but moving on, it says the extension file has been on standby for a while, quite simply because in the mind of the Gabonese striker, there is clearly the possibility of a departure this summer. The prospects of seeing Arsenal play in the Champions League next season are even more reduced, obviously, in brackets, where we are in the league. So the player naturally looks elsewhere, and if the Real Madrid track is very real, the name of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang being part of the shortlist of Zidane in attack that leading to Inter Milan begins to gain more momentum. Inter Milan is said to be behind the scenes forcing the arrival of Aubameyang under the impetus of Antonio Conte, convinced of his potential. The return of the Gabonese, it didn't say anything else, but the return of the Gabonese to Serie A is becoming clearer and clearer by day, especially since he is seduced by the idea of the return to Milan, even if it's the opposite camp. Obviously, he's previously tied at Milan, and obviously, he'd hit the ground running. Obviously, the way of living in Milan, a city like I was about to say Zidane, living in a city like Milan in Italy is a dream. Wonderful food, wonderful cuisine, wonderful way of life, scenery. Obviously, he's been up there already, so he knows probably the spots. Someone like Aubameyang, I know he likes fashion, so Milan's one of the fashion capitals of the world. He's got that. From a sporting perspective, clearly, I don't know where he's learned it, but I think for all Aubameyang's good at in terms of goal scoring, it's underestimated how and I don't want to touch any wood and let him get injured, but he's always fit. He looks after himself. He's a good trainer. Going to Italy extends your career. I think the key to this is the financial package. So on top of the way of life, on top of, wanting to play for a winner in Conte and a big club like Inter Milan, there's obviously the Champions League. We failed Aubameyang. Let's keep it in the same way people will polarize Mesut Ozil. We failed Ozil. Ozil came here at 24. Now again, what I mean by that is, I'm not saying Ozil couldn't pull it in and do things. I'm saying this because when we bought Ozil, we was told Bayern Munich level. We're seeing a couple other players, Santi before him, and Alexis come in after him, thinking we're levels. But when you sign someone like Ozil, how long did we sit here and say, all right, we've got this playmaker, but there's no striker, there's no this, there's no that, we need to do all the other things. Now, clearly, Mesut Ozil has stagnated and, again, sometimes been poor on the football field. But, we've bought a big player and we've expected it to just, we've signed him, everything's going to happen. I think the same similarities are there with Aubameyang. Now, we needed to sign Aubameyang, we needed a goal scorer, but what enticed Aubameyang to come in here? Wenger was obviously a big part and helped. Arsenal's obviously previous ties, and probably Aubameyang was seduced by the idea of not only playing in the Premier League, people, but helping Arsenal, similar to Lacazette as well, even with his form, the return of Champions League. So if you sign Aubameyang, again, we're saying the same things, people. We've got Aubameyang, but we needed a winger. Cool, last summer we went out and got a winger. We're screaming every summer, we need centre-half, we need this midfielder, we need that. So you've bought another top-quality player and not fix up all the other areas so that we do this thing. So you can't blame him. So again, we're failing ourselves. We're failing these players, really and truly. And you can't blame him. Champions League, again, wages is probably... If we were in a better financial situation and wages wasn't as important to us as it is to other... wages was less important to us, we might be able to fork out that outlay. But, considering the financial landscape has changed with this COVID stuff, considering, the still contract talk and wage cuts and stuff with the players. So that tells you Arsenal's situation, probably regardless of this, people, is in a delicate situation. Our wage budget anyways, there's players that have stagnated, that are top earners, that shouldn't be here. There's top earners that are technically on loan. There's a couple other players that shouldn't be here, and we've mismanaged. Like, no disrespect to El Nene, but why was he given a new deal once upon a time? Do you get it? So even if we wanted to, we couldn't, because we couldn't give Aubameyang it without moving these players on. And there's been several players, clearly, some are in, some are out. We failed. Of course, I would love Aubameyang to stay, but I've said it in numerous vids. When I remove my Arsenal cap and my love for this ain't the place for top players to be. Listen, the only reasons to keep Aubameyang here is that he's comfortable in London. You know, obviously, if he goes to one of these big clubs, he might not be as important. They might get rid of him next summer. But I think you should back yourself as a top player to go and do that. I think he would give a good opportunity. He'd be a good player to have for a season or two whenever he calls it a day within your side. Because Real Madrid, they want to win the league again. Keep him for 2 years, he can do that. Top 6 rival, he can do that. You get it, people? So it doesn't make sense. We have failed him. Like, we have really failed him, really and truly. We failed ourselves, and I can't blame him. The only things that can keep him at Arsenal, like I said before I started waffling, is, you know, he's comfortable here. He feels important, like how he was at Dortmund. Comfortable in London. I keep saying comfortable like it's more points. That's it, people. That's it. Because if it's a purely sporting thing, it's not here. It's not staying here. It's not like, when you look past, I'm sure he loves the club, I'm sure he's comfortable, I'm sure like us he's fond of it, but when you look past the mask of Arsenal's previous historic ties and what we've done, we're not doing that in serious, people. The only thing that could probably keep him is that he believes in Arteta. And if I'm him, on an honest thing, I'm like, Arteta, listen, I believe in you definitely more than Emre, you know, but we're going 2 different ways. I'm not getting any younger. Even if you do a coaching miracle, are the people above you going to do this thing? That's it. Aubameyang sees firsthand. He has to question the club's ambition. I don't know if they're going to help you, and you know, you might get us back to a team that's qualifying for Champions League and stuff, but when it's time to kick on to that next level in 2 years, it's good for the Sakas and Martinellis because they'll be in their early 20s. It's time to call it, keep it moving. So it's a delicate one. I couldn't blame him for going into Milan, Barcelona, Real Madrid, all of these names. But a bit of me does feel that a lot of them, like I said, would take a chance on him because of his contractual situation at Arsenal, because he probably, for a player like him, he would be sold on the cheap. 50-odd million in today's day and age for him is a steal. But a part of me does feel that he's not necessarily, not because of ability, he's not necessarily first choice. Whether it's a bit of ageism or ageist, I don't know the word, because you see the Werners, the Haalands, Mbappe's move to Real Madrid allegedly ain't happening. You know, these sort of young strikers are more in the Martinez to Barca. It seems like Aubameyang is a second choice. Like, if we can't get these, man, we'll get Aubameyang. Or it seems like there'll need to be some movement before Aubameyang goes to wherever. If Martinez goes to Barcelona, for example, where you've heard talks, then obviously Aubameyang might make the move to Inter. I don't know what Barca is, but he's always linked with Barca. If something happens there, who knows? If Real Madrid go for these other targets, you've seen that they want to go back for Pogba. They want 2 central midfielders. You hear talks of some other players. I don't know their financial situation. I don't know, people. Part of me feels, again, because of what I said about, you know, how poor we are financially and there's no gate receipts and things, part of me feels, ironically, you know, the team might be looking at this like, alright, cool, we sell Aubameyang, you know, you can bring another striker in. Aubameyang's probably bringing out a 50, you know, just over 50, we break even. If you can, it's not as white and black as this, but if you give that straight to Arteta now, then that's something for Arteta to work in. Now, I'm not really a fan of that because, again, you sell Aubameyang, you're not really solving anything because you're going to need to find a striker. Again, I hope to God, I would love an unknown striker to come into this club, no one knows about him and he comes and hits it. Or I'd love a young striker to come and hit it straight away. But we're probably going to have to wait. We probably can't afford a like-for-like replacement unless, you know, something happens in the market. We can't. We're going to have to go for some with a bit of patience. If you want them players, you have to overpay. And again, we haven't got much money allegedly, you know, not too many players are going to bring people in. We probably to a degree have to sell before we can bring in substantial players or a marquee one anyways. They might see it and say, you know what, Aubameyang leaves, Torreira is someone linked with a move. We'll get onto Partey in a bit, people. But Torreira's linked with a move. That's a 40-odd. You know, you're looking at 100 and something million. Is it really 100 and something? No, that's about 90 million. Almost did myself dumb there. On top of whatever Arsenal had. Now, again, I know it's not as white and black as that, but my point is there's not too many players that make a lot of dough in the squad at Arsenal. I know every little helps in. If he was to sell an El Nene, a Mustafi, a Socrates, Maitland-Niles and Holding's future is probably in the balance. All the money will add up, sort of thing. But you're going to have to do a lot of work for that. And when you look at someone like Mkhitaryan, You're not going to bring in a lot of money for him. You probably get a 10, 15. They're the fees to 10 to 20 you've seen linked with Roma, but more substantial than that is it frees up the wages. Ozil, Ozil survived Emirates, so he can survive anything right now. He's running down his deal. Are they going to give Aubameyang more than Ozil with Ozil on the books? And also it's the precedent, people, because again, Arsenal don't have no star players, but let's just say Pepe hits it off. Pepe becomes, PFA, does what Salah's doing. We bring in the next man, they're kind of doing that. Martinelli tomorrow and Saka tomorrow becoming top players. Again, it's a precedent to set because they might be looking at it like, all right, cool, we're doing this. You've given Aubameyang that. So I might not want what Aubameyang's got, but I want this. Or you've given Aubameyang that, I want that. You do see these things sort of happen. Now, that's not for me as a fan to really concern myself about. My point just simply being we need to be careful with the wages because with Ozil, that's probably added, no disrespect to Ozil, because you don't know I'm a big fan of Messi, but that's probably added more fuel to the fire, because if I'm a Aubameyang, I'm saying, yo, you got to give me what Ozil, I want minimum what Ozil wants, and I still want my goal scoring bonuses, I want bonus if we get Champions League, I want bonus if we win cup competitions, I want bonus if I win PFA, not PFA, if I'm in the PFA team of the year, and I want bonuses for individual accolades, both off and on the field, depending on how we do on the field. I want bonuses for scoring these goals. If I get 20 league goals in the league, if, extra K, put top golden boot, whatever it's called, I want P's for that. And my base salary's got to be like Ozil's or thingies. Because you're doing that. That's what I'm doing. If I'm Saka's agent, obviously Saka's agent and Saka's not an idiot. He knows he can't get 300 bags a week. Hopefully he becomes that player. But I'm saying, yo, I'm not being funny, but you've given 350 odd to a player that you lot have actively tried to sell. My client is on the rise, might get capped by England one day. I mean, you're saying this, but I want that. Or away from these players, because I don't want to scapegoat and create scenarios. But, any player we're negotiating with, you might sit there and go, I need that sort of thing. Do you get it? Like Lacazette, do you know what? Let's not do Lacazette dirty because football's fickle. If he gets back to the Lacazette he's been in this season, then less people be on his back, myself included. But if Lacazette was still banging, he'd have to be looking at it like, yo, what going for this? Not even Ozil. But I'm like, you got Ozil on big P's, you got Mkhitaryan on big P's. I believe he's earning more than Mkhitaryan. I'm like, you got to do something for me. So we've got to really think about that, people. We really got to think, people. For what it's worth, the Gabonese striker earns in the region of 200k per week and wants a significant upgrade on his current deal to sign an extension. He's also keen to play Champions League football. I do think, again, if he is comfortable here and we do give him a suitable deal in terms of money and league and length, I think that his agent might say, yo, listen, you might as well stay here. Or we'd have a stronger case of keeping him. More positive news on him, though, if you listen to Julien Laurens, he has said, at the moment, because of the situation, obviously the COVID-19, there's been no talks between Aubameyang and Arsenal, although this will be planned at some point to see if he may extend his contract. So far, no club has come in for him or the player. And again, obviously, there's probably, again, whether the Inter Milan, let's just say the Inter Milan and all these teams, there's some legs to it. Not all interest is necessarily driven by the club. You've got agents and all sorts of middlemen that are kind of gauging, would you come Inter? I would, but I want this and that. He's saying this. These sort of things happen way before official bids. You need some signs of encouragement, people, really and truly. Julien Laurens went on to say that we've scouted Berama, obviously of Brentford, who have made a vid on and you've all seen. Jonathan David, Canadian lad, plays up front, playing his trade in Belgium, been linked with a lot of German clubs, and Edouard of Celtic as well, people. Apparently Arsenal have scouted them, so maybe we are resigned to Aubameyang leaving, selling him and doing something else. I don't know. Now, Thomas Partey, 1 minute he's on it, then he's not. Then, people are coming out and saying, forget what his dad said. This is happening. Then people have said, forget what his agent has said. This is still happening. It's a circus. And to be fair, whether it's nothing in this or not, I think his agent has done a madness already because, this is really putting pressure on Atletico Madrid, who allegedly, before I forget, have put off talks until the end of the season. Now, it's a tricky one just generally because obviously clubs have a billion things to probably be thinking about before this epidemic and after it as well. Obviously, contracts and signings are an important thing, but there's a lot of work to be done way before that, and there's a lot of assessing needing to be done. So contract talks, whether, clubs can signal intentions and say, you know what, let's see how this blows over, but these are the I's, and we're crossing these T's, you will sign this when this blows over. That's something different. You've heard apparently Partey is not satisfied with the money that's been put on the table. I say money, but the terms words that's ambiguous. I say finances because he's, if I'm I'm hearing Juventus, PSG, Arsenal, all the top teams are linked with him. Top six rivals are linked with me. I'm an important player. I've said he was 24 last video. I believe he's 26. I need an important deal. And you see how his dad come out, and he's kind of indirectly spoken about that. So, maybe we're leveraging this interest. Now, there is probably some truth in the links because apparently Arsenal scouted him for a while. Emery wanted him and Arteta is keen on him if the go-ahead is there. So we're probably playing on that interest. But by the same logic, at just face value, we could just be, gassing the whole thing and Arsenal could never be interested in him sort of thing. I want him to come to the club, man. But for what it's worth, apparently Mundo Deportivo say both the player and the club have put contract talks on hold until things have become more clear. Although Atletico remain concerned about Thomas's modest buyout clause and recognise they'll have to pay him what he is worth if he is to extend his contract. So he feels undervalued in some way. Partey has been a target of Arsenal for several years, and Emery put his name forward as a target last year, but Arsenal had other positions to strengthen and his 50 million buyout clause was beyond their reach. The situation hasn't changed this year. Arteta really likes the player. Now, if the situation hasn't changed in that, we still like the player, or does it mean the release clause? Because then this isn't nothing. Then if I was broke then and I'm broke now, I can dream of a player as much. I've either got to go make that money by doing something to get people. Apparently, like I said, Juventus are keeping a close eye on negotiations and want him. Again, that's what Marcia said. But if it's Arsenal and Juventus, that's no contest. How many midfielders do Juventus want, man? Big man team. Come on, give us a few, man. What's going on? His dad, I got his dad's comments. Apparently his dad got some other comments. He said, I will advise him on any day to move from Atletico when there is big money because that is his chosen job. The truth is that there is life after football. As a father, I always want the best for my son. I don't want him to struggle when he calls it a day. And do you know what? People might say, why are you getting involved in your son's situation? And a lot of it is true. I agree with that. But all's fair at love and war. The agent can use anything to their advantage, and he should use this because, if he feels that, there might be other people around. There could be his teammates that feel that sort of thing and puts more pressure on him, and that could all help him, sort of thing. And he's also said, so if a club decides to sign him and the money involved is good, I'll advise him to move. It would be prudent for my son to make a move that will make him rich and also do investments. So he's obviously said it in a mad way, but he cares about his son's, maybe his as well, financial interests and securing his family's future. And not just him, I'm sure, in an ideal world, you'd want to secure your grandkids and everything. And he's come from extreme humble beginnings, so I'm sure he doesn't want anyone in his family to go through that or anything like that. So we'll see how it goes, man. It's just... yeah, man, I don't know. If we sell to rivals, it will be silly, but I've accepted Aubameyang goes anywhere. Like, I'm mentally prepared for him to go anywhere in the top 6. I'm mentally prepared for him to go anywhere in Europe because, listen, he goes with my blessing. Not that my blessing is relevant, but, if you're doing your job on the football field. And what scares me, and he'll never say it publicly, but what it's the things we don't know. It's, does he believe in I think he believes in Arteta, but does he believe in the club's ethos? When you hear Raul and Kroenke and all these guys are having meetings and talks and stuff, does he have faith in them? Especially, I mentioned at the start, wage cuts and things, that's irrelevant. But if we're having to make cuts, how does that affect transfers? If you can't make too good transfers or too many transfers, that's going to, you're not going to be as strong as other people who can. He might be thinking of that. Again, and I don't think he's like that, but we've all been in teams or played Sunday League and you thought this ain't the thing, or we've been in a five-a-side team, or when you're in PE in school and, you get put on the dead team in our school it was, the lower the number, the higher you are in it. So you might get put in you might be in a team with, you're the only one that's from set 1 in PE, but you're with man that are from set 5. So they're going to be shit. Like, guys aren't going to be able to run. The football's not going to be patterned. I'm speaking because that's happened to me and I actually got kicked out of PE one day for that. If he's looking around at the players and thinking, I like you guys, but you're just not levels. Like you've heard Van Persie say it indirectly. Like you've heard Cesc. Like you've heard previously Henry, which I think Henry's situation is almost... not identical, of course, because they're not the same player and things, but it's like I see a striker who, is peaking or / peaked, because Aubameyang came into his own a bit late, but, they're getting on. And the team and what he needs to do for his future in terms of his financials and sporting things isn't necessarily staying here because, at the time we had a young squad then. We definitely didn't have the financial things we have now. Football is worse now, in my opinion, but yeah, he's got a decision to make. And for me, it's the things we don't see. Does he believe in his teammates' abilities to get top four? Because he's been with some of them for years, and he might genuinely believe it. Obviously, you know, footballers, when you're in that situation, or athletes, you are critical of your teammates, but you understand that you've got more of affiliation with them. But you must be like, I'm not drawing anyone out, but it's like, you must look at, I'm not going to say names, but you must look at who's playing behind you, who's feeding you balls, who's picking it off the defenders, who's playing at right back and struggling to have partnerships. You must look at these men and think, nah, this ain't the place, like, man can do better than this. And, as much as he's probably happy here and happy with the way we treat him, he never come out of Arsenal's academy. He never grew up in London, He's, his mum don't work for Arsenal. His mum, his granddad never helped build Arsenal with his bare hands. So my point is, he's got no affiliation like that, Aubameyang. I know I went away from Partey back to Aubameyang, but he's got no real affiliation. So it's nothing personal. It's just business. That's an age-old saying, and I think that's relevant. It's going to be for another vid, but ironically, maybe selling him is what Arsenal is on. But I've been here for time. The Partey thing, I don't really believe it. I don't really, I don't know what to make of the Aubameyang thing. So in regards to the market, we'll see what's going to happen in that regards. Hopefully Aubameyang signs a new deal. Reality is he's off. Again, any player, unless you're Messi or Ronaldo, anyone can be replaced. But what's important is who we replace him with. If the club have done their due diligence on this suspected replacement, then fine. Have they planned for 2 or 3 different scenarios? Like, it might not necessarily be enough. I think it should be another striker, but they might say, alright, cool, we're gonna try convince, regardless of what we think, convince Lacazette. So let's sign another wide man. Do you get it? Or let's sign someone that's capable of playing in all these roles, sort of thing. I don't know what the club is on. Or they might just say, you know what, let's use the Aubameyang money to strengthen in other areas and not bring in any attacker if Aubameyang was to leave. But it is what it is, people. We'll see how that one develops. I've been rambling longer than I wanted to. I'm going to get out of here. DG.